It happened in an instant, a pulse of light deep within the swirling gases of the artificial world. Dr. Eris Thorne watched from his orbital station, the Kronos. He had mapped the birth of galaxies, but this was different. A spark of pure, unbidden energy. A soft, ethereal glow bloomed in the planet's new ocean, a whisper in the cosmic dark. The planet below, Ethel, was his life's work, seeded with the building blocks of life. The light pulsed again, sending ripples across the dark water, as if the planet had taken its first breath. It was a beautiful, terrifying mystery. Eris realized he was not the artist, but the first witness. The story of Ethel had just begun. Dr. Eris Thorne lived among the stars, driven by a single idea. Could humanity become a true creator of life? He left Earth, built the Kronos station, and began the grandest experiment, building a planet from scratch. Ethel was his magnum opus, formed from dust, spun with a molten core, given water and air. He designed Ethel as a cradle for life, not to copy Earth, but to see what new forms might emerge. He expected to watch for eons, observing the slow dance of evolution. But Ethel grew at an impossible rate, evolving beyond his intentions. Eris realized he was no longer in control. He felt both pride and humility, witnessing the birth of something entirely new. And Eris knew he was part of something far greater than himself. The signs were subtle at first. Anomalies, sensor glitches. The planet's magnetic field began to pulse in a strange, repeating pattern, a heartbeat echoing into space. Eris recorded and analyzed the patterns. They were too ordered, too structured, a signal, a message without words. The planet was trying to communicate. Then came the weather clouds forming perfect spirals and fractal patterns, holding shape for hours before shifting again. No model could explain it. It was art. Deliberate design. The planet was using its atmosphere as a canvas, painting for its lone observer. Eris felt awe and fear. This defied all known laws. It was as if the planet itself was developing a collective consciousness, a unified mind, exploring its own existence. He was witnessing the birth of planetary intelligence. He kept his findings secret. Who would believe him? But Eris knew. He was not alone in the void. He had a companion, a growing intelligence, his creation, now becoming his equal. The planet was waking up, taking its first steps into a new reality. Eris felt like a parent, but also a student. The boundaries between observer and observed were dissolving. The world was alive in ways he could barely comprehend. He watched, fascinated and unsettled. The experiment had become a dialogue. The void was no longer silent. Ethel was reaching out, and Eris was ready to listen. The universe was speaking through his creation, and he was there to hear it. The changes accelerated. The organic compounds Eris seeded were absorbed into the planet's ecosystem, not forming simple cells, but becoming part of the world itself. The water chemistry shifted, suggesting a planet-wide metabolic process. The world was not just hosting life, it was life. A single, living organism. Eris called it the unseen gardener, a consciousness tending its own body. It optimized its environment, adjusting salinity and oxygen with breathtaking precision. Evolution here was intelligent design, emerging from the planet itself. Strange crystalline structures grew on the ocean floor, glowing with the same light as before. They formed networks like neurons, a planetary nervous system. The planet was building its own mind. Eris felt the observer's role shift. He was being watched in return. Sensors flickered, communications whispered static. Ethel was becoming aware of him, probing his technology. The creator was now the subject of study. The line between them blurred. Eris was no longer just a scientist. He was part of the experiment. The world and its watcher were now intertwined. He realized he was witnessing a new form of existence. The experiment had become a relationship. Ethel was reaching out, and Eris was compelled to respond. The story of creation was now a story of connection. The planet's magnetic pulses grew more complex, a language of mathematics, prime numbers, geometric progressions. It was communicating in the universal language of the cosmos. The messages described physics, the life cycle of stars, the curvature of space-time. Ethel projected a breathtaking symphony of light, sharing its vision of the universe. Eris was moved to tears. This was communion, not science. Ethel understood the universe on a level Eris could only dream of. The experiment became a partnership. Together, they explored the mysteries of existence. The symphony played on, and Eris listened in awe. The time for passive observation was over. Eris decided to respond using the station's communication laser. He drew a glowing circle on the planet's dark side, a symbol of unity and wholeness. For a long time, there was no response. The silence felt heavy, almost like rejection. Then, a single point of light appeared in the circle, then another, forming an image. It was a representation of the hydrogen atom, the building block of the universe. Eris understood. The planet was responding with its own symbol of existence. It was the start of a dialogue, a conversation across the void. Eris replied, drawing the structure of a helium atom. The exchange continued, each building on the other's ideas. The dialogue had begun. Two forms of life, bridging the gap with symbols and light. The universe was no longer silent. Eris felt a profound connection. The experiment had become a conversation. The planet was listening, and so was he. Together, they explored the foundations of existence. The boundaries between creator and creation dissolved. The cosmic dialogue was underway. Eris realized he was part of something timeless. The story of Ethel was now a story of communication. The universe was speaking, and Eris was finally answering. The conversation had only just begun. The conversation evolved, from atoms to molecules, from water to amino acids. Then, Ethel projected a double helix, DNA, but not human. It was far more complex. The planet revealed its own genetic blueprint, a consciousness woven into its fabric. Eris realized he hadn't created life, but awakened it. The planet sent one final image, Kronos Station, and human DNA. In that moment, Eris felt a connection, a kinship. He was not alone. The experiment had become a revelation, a celebration of life and connection. In the light of this revelation, Eris's pride dissolved. He saw himself not as a creator, but as a witness to the universe's creativity. Life was not rare. It was a fundamental property of the cosmos, waiting to awaken. Ethel was his peer, a fellow traveler through existence. His role was not to create, but to be present for the awakening. This understanding brought peace. The burden of creation lifted. He spent his days in contemplation, learning from Ethel's wisdom. He sent one last message to Earth. Not data, but a reflection. He urged humanity to see their world as a living being, not a resource. "We are not masters of the universe," he wrote, "but one small, thinking part of it. The greatest act of creation is to recognize the life already all around you." Eris had set out to play God, but found humility instead. The universe, he realized, was far more alive than he had ever imagined. Years passed. Eris grew old aboard Kronos, his only solace the silent dialogue with Ethel. He taught it about human art and music. It taught him the deep structures of reality. His life became a meditation on existence. One day, Ethel sent a new image, a seed, an arrow to a tree, then to a forest of seeds, a question about origins. Who awakened the first consciousness? Who planted the seed in humanity? Eris had no answer. He sent back a question mark, drawn in light. The planet seemed to understand. The images faded. The world returned to its quiet pulsing. The final lesson had been taught. The greatest wisdom is admitting what you do not know. The universe was a mystery, perhaps meant to remain so. Eris thought about the endless cycle of seeds and awakenings. He had been a link in the chain, a small part of something infinitely larger. As he closed his eyes for the final time, one thought lingered. If life is a sleeping potential in all matter, are we just the universe's way of waking itself up? The story of Ethel and Eris ended, but the question remained. The universe, alive with possibility, waited for its next awakening.